Welcome back, Truth Seeker. In the headlines, today, February 21st, 2026, the 52nd day of the calendar year. A blockbuster nor'easter is about to crush parts of the Northeast. And of course, I've been talking about this pattern of weather warfare in 52 for over a decade. The chapter I wrote in Letters and Numbers about how the first Weather Warfare Admitted Act was in 1952. That chapter is now nearly a decade old. I was probably writing it 10 years ago this time. I know I finished that book at the start of 2017. But yeah, I've been a broken record about 52 and weather warfare. And it starts to make sense when you learn gematria, the Kabbalistic practice of coding numbers into words. The word flood is 52, the word earth is 52, the word Enlil is 52. And Enlil is the Babylonian god of storms, and this knowledge of Kabbalah and gematria that comes with it. You can practice within Kabbalah the practice of coding numbers into words. But it goes back to Babylon. And again, if you're new here, in English, there's 4 base ciphers, the alphabetic order, the reverse alphabetic order, and both orders with numerology applied. You can see all the overlap with flood, earth, and Enlil. So yes, this is much of the focus in the news on the 52nd day of the year, February 21st. And they're saying the worst of this storm should hit on Monday, the 54th day of the year. And that's interesting because the first act of weather warfare admitted to in 1952 was again on August 15th. That was the Lynmouth flood in the UK, committed by the Royal Air Force. But it happened on the Jesuit order's birthday. If you're not aware of who the Jesuits are, you should learn about them. At the beginning of this country, when it was being founded, you had founders like Jefferson and Adams warning that if the Jesuits come out of suppression, they could subvert this nation. The Jesuits very much do run this nation. It's military, it's media. Case in point, the latest leader of the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth, he was nominated to lead the Pentagon on November 12th, which is the birthday of the leader of the Jesuits, Arturo Sosa. And of course, the current president, just like the last one, they're both Jesuit educated. I'm talking about Trump and Biden. But yeah, this 54 number, Monday, the day that this nor'easter is supposed to be at its worst, is the 54th day of the year. Remember, John Carroll established the first Jesuit university at age 54, not to mention John Carroll equals 54, just like Jesuit order. Again, the Jesuit headquarters in the world is in Rome. It's at the address 54. The building's called the Church of the Jesuit. We just talked about what the Jesuit-educated Supreme Court did to Trump's tariffs 54 days after the anniversary of the act that Trump was using to justify the tariffs, which the Supreme Court said not so fast. Not to mention it was 251 days after Trump's birthday as well, which is the 54th prime. But the point is, this number comes up in high ritual all the time. And then they're saying tomorrow, Sunday, a bomb cyclone is going to hit, contributing to this nor'easter. And again, weather warfare, something that was banned by the U.S. Congress decades ago, something that was banned by the United Nations decades ago. Weather warfare is a real thing. People roll their eyes at these things, but these are things that were literally banned by our government decades ago. Doesn't mean that they're not being used anyway. I mean, just like how the United Nations has all these laws that countries such as the U.S. and Israel and maybe some others just choose to violate day after day. You know what we just did in Venezuela? That was a total violation of international law and the rules of the United Nations. So again, just because laws exist saying these things aren't to happen doesn't mean they're not happening. But yeah, look it up. If you didn't know that the U.S. government banned weather warfare decades ago, look it up. If it's not a real thing, then why did it need to be banned? Anyway, all this terminology, it's become consistent terminology now for the better part of the last decade. I remember when it was in 2014, it was November. I was in Washington State. I still am. But my house had been burglarized, and I got home early in the morning to find out that my whole house had been ransacked. And if your house gets robbed, you got to file a police report if you want to make an insurance claim. And I hate to call the police, but I called the police that morning and they said, well, we would like you to wait outside until the officers show up. Man, this was in the middle of November, and they were telling us that we were experiencing a bomb cyclone at the time. So it was freezing. It was super windy. It took the cops 4 hours to show up. I eventually just went inside. I was like, whatever, I'm not staying out here in this. I'm not going to just keep my car running. Anyway, I'm just, this terminology of bomb cyclone, they've been using a lot is the point I'm making. That was back in 2014. It's 2026 now. But yeah, they're saying this bomb cyclone is supposed to hit the region Sunday, which is tomorrow, February 22nd, the 53rd day of the year. Bomb cyclone 53. And again, if you're new here, these ciphers, again, alphabetic order, reverse alphabetic order, both orders with numerology applied. This stuff happens all the time, you guys. It's just, it really is super consistent. And for everyone who doesn't know, I would encourage you to look up the document from the middle of the 1990s. It was put out by the Air Force of the United States, saying it's titled Owning the Weather by 2025. And I'm pretty sure they figured out how to own the weather a lot sooner than 2025. Also, I just want to remind about a couple things that happened in recent history. We just had the massive ice storm across much of the nation, including the South, that isn't used to this cold, except for in recent years where this has started to happen pretty much since the 2020s began. This massive ice storm in the middle of, ice raids, and it being announced that ice can raid people's property without a warrant. The next thing you know, half the nation's frozen in ice. And very popular science fiction writer Kurt Vonnegut, whose brother's Bernard Vonnegut, who invented cloud seeding, meaning using science to make it rain, he warned about, what people like his brother were up to, and he wrote the book Cat's Cradle, warning about weather warfare, and he talks about this fictional thing called Ice 9 that could destroy the world. Notice that from Kurt Vonnegut's death anniversary to the ice storm beginning on January 23rd, which, by the way, was Georgetown's birthday, the first Jesuit university in the nation. Again, first act of weather warfare goes back to the Jesuit. Yeah. And remember, the Jesuits are a military that claim to have influence in 112 nations with 112 nations militaries. Anyway, Ice 9 equals 41. It was exactly 41 weeks after Kurt Vonnegut's death anniversary. Keep in mind, USA equals 41. 41's the 13th prime. Half the USA was frozen. Also, from his last birthday to January 23rd was 74 days. General Electric equals 74. That's who he used to work for, as well as his brother. And again, his brother did the first cloud seeding experiment in the world with General Electric. So, yeah, there's even a little bit more to it. But if you guys forgot about how the year began, or I should say how the country's new year began on the 4th of July, remember, we had the massive flooding in Texas, not far from where Lyndon Johnson grew up. And Lyndon Johnson said back when he was president, who controls the weather controls the world. And he talked about how in the future there'll be a weather satellite to control the world's weather. It's kind of like that movie Greenland. But weather satellite has a gematria value of 249. And last July 4th, the country turned 249 years old, and there was the massive flooding not far from his home. But yeah, General Electric, 74, kind of like how Independence Day equals 74, like holiday, like July 4th, 7-4. And July 4th leaves 180 days left in the year. Bernard Vonnegut, again, Kurt's brother, who did the first cloud seeding experiment, 180. And from Bernard Vonnegut's death anniversary to the flooding of the Guadalupe River was 70 days. Independence Day equates to 74 and 70. From that day to the anniversary of his cloud seeding experiment, 134 days, like flooding. And remember, he did the silver iodide experiment to make it rain. Silver's the 47th element on the periodic table, kind of like how silver's gone through the roof in the time of number 47. So is gold. Gold's the 79th element on the periodic table. Silver's the 47th, while Trump is 79 as number 47, gold and silver to the moon. But yeah, it was also 131 days from Kurt Vonnegut's birthday that happened, in silver iodide 131. And I know we live in a nation where people don't really read, so names like Kurt Vonnegut aren't real well known anymore. But understand, Kurt Vonnegut is a titan in the world of authors, and especially in science fiction, and I would say especially in writing about things that are meaningful. Kurt Vonnegut. I found out about Kurt Vonnegut from one of my own teachers. I had a teacher ask me if I was inspired to write by Kurt Vonnegut, and I didn't even know who he was at the time, but she told me that the way I wrote and the things I wrote about reminded her of Kurt Vonnegut, so I should read his stuff, and it was a great recommendation because I saw why she said it right away. I said, yeah, him and I were sarcastic as hell, and we both have a very similar outlook on the world and authority, which shouldn't be, as I often say, the powers that shouldn't be. But yeah, something else, isn't it? How they just do the same stuff year after year. They tell you on the 52nd day of the year, this nor'easter is going to crush the Northeast. And again, just look at our insurance rates, you guys, because of all these weather disasters. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, my insurance rates are, and it's true for everybody else, I haven't even had to make any claims, but my insurance rates are double what they were not all that long ago. Again, you guys, we're getting priced out of existence. That is the Agenda 21, now Agenda 2030 plan. Reduce consumerism, and they're doing that by making life very expensive. And this is part of how they're achieving it. Of course, a little cooties 19 here, a little weather warfare there, another made-up story here and there, another instigated war there. Yeah. They control us through stories, don't they? Stories and agendas. They have real-world consequence on our lives. All right, True Seeker, we'll leave it there for now. Oh, and by the way, can I please ask you guys to hit the like, because the troll pack, especially those two trolls that are just paid to harass me all day, 24/7, 365, they have so many alt accounts, you guys, and part of the reason that my viewership is, if you've noticed, videos are doing really bad lately, it's because those guys are just pounding the dislike button on like 100 different alt accounts as soon as I upload a video. So I have like ratios that are 20% likes because those guys are getting on so many alt accounts and giving every video so many thumbs down. The last video I just uploaded, if you saw the one about the thumbnail with the Pirates baseball player who died and who used to coach the Seattle Mariners, that video within 10 minutes of being uploaded had about 80 dislikes compared to about 10 likes. And YouTube reads that, and the algorithm is, oh, this video must be awful. So, yeah, the trolls are doing a number on this channel right now. If you can